This is the Insta360 One X2. Let's go test this out. All right, now that we've collected a bunch of footage, it is freezing out here. Imagine that. I'm surrounded by ice and it's cold. Hey, if you don't know me, my name's Jake and I create content here on YouTube to help solo creators on the go. People like me who are out on the go, creating small commercial projects or stuff for you on YouTube. So I test and review equipment here in Alaska, and I do tips and tutorials on how to use that equipment so you can tell better stories and make smart buying decisions. Insta360 did send me this camera, but they're not paying for this review. They don't get to have input in the video or anything like that. They're not previewing it. This is just my opinion about what I think about this camera. The Insta360 One X2 has really impressed me in how well it's performed in this cold weather. It's about 12, maybe 13 degrees out here, and the battery has lasted way longer than any other action camera I've had, which Insta360 said they did improve the battery life by as much as 50%, and I have every reason to believe them after running around here and shooting a whole bunch today. The battery has just gone and gone and gone, which is impressive for really cold weather. For me, 360 cameras have had a really weird place. Like, I don't feel like we're really ready for a lot of 360 VR sort of content yet. They are interesting in the fact that you can capture a 360 degree field of view and then, highlight or point or just frame what you want. And that's where I think right now 360 cameras are really coming into play as being a great tool for creators. Being able to capture behind the scenes of you doing things like this, especially when you're in locations where you can't fly a drone, or because I use my drone a lot as a B-roll camera, but especially then. And then also when you're in places where you don't really know what's going to happen, but you want to capture it and then worry about getting what you want to get out of the shot later. And there is something else that you need to consider about 360 cameras when it comes to shooting behind the scenes things of yourself, or views of you going down a mountainside on a snowboard or just doing kind of crazy things. The stabilization on Insta360 One X2 is amazing. In these shots here, I was hand holding it as I walked. I even just took the selfie pole and stuck it in my backpack, strapped it down, and had it extended all the way up with the 360 camera going. And this stabilization that comes out of this camera is amazing. Just absolutely incredible. And that stabilization is one of the things that I think makes a 360 camera like the One X2 a fantastic behind the scenes camera, because you get this beautifully smooth, wonderfully stable footage. Now the only downside is that no 360 cameras in this form factor, in this size, really have enough resolution to output a true 4K file, but you can output pretty high res and then up-res it to 4K the rest of the way. And the results are what you've seen in this video. And that's where you come down to workflow. Workflow with a 360 camera is very different. Even if you're not producing 360 content, you have to work with the files in post, because you have to choose your framing, you have to choose what type of audio work you want to do with it, And Insta360 has provided a couple of great ways to do it. One, there's a plugin for Premiere. There's going to be a plugin for Final Cut, or there may already be, depending on when you're watching this video. One thing I noticed with this camera as opposed to the 1R camera that I have is that when you hit the auto record button, or when you just hit record, it wakes it from a sleep mode or off like this. It doesn't take long to boot up and it automatically starts recording, which is great. I had trouble with the Insta360 not doing that. But then also when you stop recording, the camera will stop recording, save the file, and power down again, which the 1R didn't do either. And so I really appreciate that, especially for behind the scenes kind of camera where you just want to hit record, capture something, and hit stop, and then shove it back in your pocket. That's great. Overall, I'm a fan of this style of 360 camera, the kind of long, thin shape. I think that one, it makes it easier for the cameras to stitch the image together, or easier for the computer to stitch it, because the cameras are so close together. It makes for a better stitch overall than if the lenses are further apart. But also, I feel like a 360 camera like this really is nice for the way you want to use it, which is stick it on a pole and have it capture behind the scenes of you. It's easy to just throw on a pole, extend that pole out if you want, hit record, and have the camera start recording behind the scenes of you from any angle. Because, as you know, 360 cameras capture footage from every angle, and it doesn't matter. You can go in later in post and reframe it, which is what makes this camera, I think, one of the ideal behind the scenes cameras, because you can just kind of set it and forget it, don't worry about it, leave it on auto, and then later go in and grab the shots you want to get. So that makes this camera a really great tool for people like me who create by themselves, but you want to capture footage of yourself in action doing things, whether it's something crazy. And because this is a weather-sealed, waterproof camera, you can use it in a lot more extreme situations to capture that behind-the-scenes footage of you doing things that are crazy. One thing that struck me about this camera right away is the touchscreen. It's big, it's colorful, it's really bright and really easy to see, and it responds really, really well to input. You can swipe up, swipe down, swipe left, swipe right, depending on the settings or what you're trying to do. But this screen responds better than any other screen that I've used from Insta360 or even some other action camera manufacturers. I don't know what they've done with it, but it works. It really works well, which is kind of surprising because it is small and it's round, which is kind of cool, but also very different. Another thing I really appreciate about Insta360 is their app. It works really well. It's fairly intuitive, fairly easy to use, but it also connects really quickly. So if I go here, hit the Insta360 app, it'll pull up right away, automatically connect to the camera if the camera's on, and just like that, you're ready to go and ready to start using it, which is great. Now I can set the white balance. Let's go back to auto. You can change all these settings. You can go if you want to go into photo or live stream, even reframe live. It's really cool what you can do when you use the app. It gives you a lot of power, a lot of flexibility to control the camera remotely, but also then to go in after the fact and edit, reframe the footage, or process the footage however you want to process it, and export it out. So if we go here, go to album, you can see here you have local, which is stuff that's on the camera already, or what's on the camera card. Now say I find something I really, really like. Let's do this one because it's shorter, so it shouldn't take as long to load. It's getting dark. It is getting dark. Turn the volume down on that. From here, you can decide to download the footage. You can change the aspect ratio that you want to present the footage in from all different kinds of aspect ratios. You can trim the footage up. You can put in markers. So say we want to start like this. We'll put it back here. We'll mark it there. And then you could do tiny planet. You could change the footage to different types of viewpoints. You can do deep tracking, which means you can track, like I can draw a square around my subject and go start tracking. And then throughout the clip, this is going to track me no matter where I go. It's just going to keep me tracking through the entire clip. So then you've got this clip that makes it fairly easy to get behind the scenes of yourself or something else without having to go through and find yourself and then frame it and do a keyframe and find yourself and frame it and do a keyframe and find yourself and frame it and do a keyframe. And as you notice there, it even tracked me through really, really low light, which is impressive work for this camera. Because the lenses are so exposed, because the camera has to see so much around it, it's really important to use a good protector for the lenses. So the nice thing is Insta360 has this little silicone cap that you can put on that protects the lenses really well in all kinds of situations. This is the Insta360 One, the original 360 camera from Insta360 that I purchased years and years ago now. And while it was a good camera and it was fun to use, I didn't use it very often because it didn't have the quality I needed to be able to actually be useful. The Insta360 One X2 is so much more useful. The quality that comes out of this is actually something that I have been using and am able to use as a B camera. And something I really enjoy about using this camera is the fact that I can film with this and actually get more than one shot out of it. And not only can you get more than one shot out of it, but you can also do things that just give a different perspective and are a little bit warpy, like this shot here. Didn't look like this in real life, but it makes it very unique and very different and gives it something that's interesting to the shot. Something else that impresses me about this camera is the low light performance was actually much better than I thought it would be. Because in the past, 360 cameras, action cameras in general, low light performance has always been where they struggle the most. For a 360 camera, for an action style camera, it does really well. And the nice thing is that Insta360 gives you some really powerful tools in the desktop app to be able to deal with noise in post. And it does a really good job of cleaning up the grain and the noise in the footage. Put together a playlist right here of other action cameras and ways to use action cameras. Click or tap there. I'll see you in one of those videos. As always, if you have questions, ask me in the comments below or join my live stream Wednesday nights, 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern here in the US. I am freezing. The sun is about to go down, so I'm going home. Cheers.